bright and cheery. Coronavirus will slow us down. So, welcome everyone. Thanks again for attending. And as you know, we are collecting questions here for the candidates. We already have a bunch, but it's going to be a lot of the system, right, based on how much time we have. So we're just going to keep pulling questions until we run out of time at 8 o'clock. So if you feel lucky, you can still submit a question. We've got some 3x5 index cards up here and some pens. So feel free to.
Questions that we don't get to, we'll print in the recorder sometime the next week or so, and ask candidates to submit their answers under 200 words.
Perfect. Yeah. So my name is Dan Siddall, and I'm
Pass the cards around.
Say again? Pass the cards around. Well, we already. Yeah, so feel free to just pass them around, come up and grab one, don't be shy. My name is Dan Siddall. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce right now, and we are co-hosting this event with Ken Singer from the Lyons Reporter online, and Susan McCann from the Lyons Restaurant Review. So, we're your hosts tonight, and if anyone wasn't aware, there is a child care available in the room right behind us here, provided by the Lyons Leos and the National Honor Society. So, I don't know if anyone's taking advantage of that yet, but if you know anyone that's stuck at home because they have a kid, boy, just text them and tell them to come on down and we'll take care of the kids. So, let's see. And then I first of all want to thank our sponsors, which are the St. Drain Market, who is providing the soft drinks and super duper aluminum can water bottles, trying to do their part to eliminate plastic in the world. And they also provided the sandwiches at a discounted price to us, which is great. Also, the Stone Cup is helping us do as close as we can to get to making this a zero waste event. So everything we have here is compostable and they provided possible.
This is going to be for the compostables. So plates, forks, knives, cups, recyclables are over there. And
thank you, Ken. The other sponsors are my company, Gateway Realty Group, Lyons Dental, of course the Redstone Review, I'm a reporter online, and Chamber of Commerce, and also Green Wave International is also one of us. We'd like to thank all of them. Thank you. So next I'd like to introduce our timekeeper, who is also our executive director of the Lyons Chamber of Commerce, Erin Fowdy. So when the questions start, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer them. And she will be raising the yellow flag, which will indicate that they have 30 seconds to wrap up their comments. And then when we reach the 2-minute mark, she'll be flipping that over and giving them the red light. So we would ask you to try to honor that. Yeah, then the bell gets rung, right? So if you want your bell rung, then just keep talking. So next we are going to hand the mic over to each, hand it down the road to each one of the candidates, and they'll have 1 minute to introduce themselves and tell us why they are voting for the mayor or board of trustees. So with that, we'll start with, we'll start at this end of the table, and Kenny, you can just start by telling us why you're right.
Sure.
Pass it to Jocelyn.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks everybody for being here. My name is Kenyon Waugh, and I've lived in Lyons 17 years this month. And when we moved here, we moved from Westminster, and we drove up and down the Front Range. Believe me, we drove everywhere up and down the Front Range, looking for a place that we felt comfortable and wanted to raise our family. And that's why we came to Lyons. When I first moved to town, like many new people in town, I wanted to check out every store and every nook and cranny that I could find in town. and I went into Tim Combs' store, and he said to me, if you're gonna live here, you have to get involved. So when I first got involved, I was on Parks and Rec, I was on the PCDC, I was on EDC, I was on LEG. But that was moving too slow, and it looked like it was going well. This was before the flood. So I stopped, and I started a business, the Lyons Dairy Bar, and then I partnered with Lyons Properties, and then I started another business, We Casa. And it was too hard to start all those businesses. So now I'm a little bit older, a little bit more patient, and have a little bit more experience. So that's why I'm running.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Farrell, and first off, I want to thank all of you for being here. This is actually very heartwarming. I am currently a trustee for the last 2 years, and I am running for mayor. I think I'm the most qualified candidate for mayor because I have been working diligently for the last 2 years on flood recovery. I know all of the ins and outs of what's happening with our wastewater treatment plant and what we need to be doing to move forward. I know about affordable housing, and I feel like my experience in the current situation of being here keeps me as a strong mayor.
So my name is Hollie Rogin. I want to extend my thanks to everybody for being here. It's really pretty phenomenal considering everybody's busy lives. I'm running for a board of trustees. I currently serve on the PCDC, which I find fantastic, and I think somebody said that it might not be spicy enough for me. So I'm running for board of trustees. I've officially lived in Lyons since 2018, although you've probably seen me around because I've been around for more like 10 or 12 years. And I have a strong background in strategy and using data to make decisions, so I think that would really help us come to town.
My name is Angelo. I've lived in Lyons for 35 years. I served 2 terms as trustee. I served 2 terms as mayor previously. I feel that in our current situation, that experience will come in very handy in regard to issues that are before us. Number one, priority for me would be the sewer plant. I think that's incredibly important. Affordable housing as well. The 4th Avenue Bridge. And I feel that my capability to negotiate will come in handy by past experience. Thank you. And thank everybody for being here.
Hi, I'm Mark Browning. I've been on the board for 2 years and decided to run for re-election because there are several bits of unfinished business that I think are important to the town. I've got a list that I've made up on the tables and stuff around here. Affordable housing is very important to us. The sewer plant, as Nick just mentioned, and Jocelyn mentioned, is very important, and some incredibly difficult decisions are coming up on that. We need to get the 4th Avenue Bridge rebuilt, and I think we're going to do that. And more generally, I've tried to focus, particularly in the most recent year, on some budget reform items. I think Lyons needs to take a serious look at some of the priorities that are reflected in its town budget and maybe redo some things from where we do them now to prepare for some tough financial decisions in the future.
Hi, my name is Gregory Lowell. I've been in town 8 years. I moved here because all my kids are here. My grandkids now are here. So we left our native state of New Hampshire and moved out here. We've always lived in small towns. Lyons was a natural fit. I've always been involved in volunteer activities. I was told once back in the little town that we lived in for 30 years in New Hampshire, they said to me, once you can recognize more than half of the people by their name, then it's time to do something. So I jumped on early, and right now I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission, I'm on the Ecology Board. I've also stepped in when we do the park on things like the Dr. Bob Committee and some other stuff. I just think it's time in my life to step up. I have some concerns, especially as regards communications and transparency in town government. That was my thing. I worked for 35 years in communications for a major company back in New Hampshire.
Hello, I'm Michael Karavas. Thanks for everybody coming out this evening. I am currently finishing up my 4th year on the board of trustees. I currently serve as the liaison for the College Board and the Utilities Engineering Board. I also serve as the chair of the Lyons Volunteers, with great volunteers scattered out through this room and in the town. I'd like to continue on the board and finish what we previously started 4 years ago and continue now, which is flood recovery. And as previously stated, we still have Second Avenue Bridge to work on, Fourth Avenue pedestrian bridge, a treatment plant, and my interests are continue to work with our budget and our infrastructure, which is aging, is quite old, and we have a lot to work on, and finding how to get that done within our budget constraints. Thank you.
My name is Bob Brakenridge. Also, thank you all for coming. I, of course, tried to think of how to put in just a few words why I'm up here, and I think it's for the very same reason all of you are here. Simply that I care about the town, I care about the issues, and I thought I should express that by being here, running for the board. I arrived here in late 2009. So I've been here since. Some of you may know I've followed many town issues very closely. Some would probably think too closely. I'm deeply interested in a number of issues, the matter of town governance. How should our board work? How should our town government work? There's a comp plan coming up. We have budget issues. I'm certainly interested in those. I'm interested in URA. I've been active, most recently I was part of a subgroup working with the Ecology Advisory Board on the issue of herbicides and pesticides in town. And I share with several, I've been gone, and the buyout properties, I think many know that is on the board's agenda for the new year, what to do with some of the buyout properties that the county still owns up by Apple Valley Way. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. So next, we are going to start with the questions. And so we're going to start at the far end. Ken and Susan are going to alternate asking the questions.
We're not going to start with me on every one,
Yeah, sorry. So, the format is that the question whose turn it is to answer a question. We'll start by answering the question within a 2-minute time frame. If anyone else, any of the other candidates would like to answer the same question, they are free to do so, and you can just indicate that by raising your hand, and the mic will be passed to you. And when that question has been satisfactorily answered by each of the candidates, then we will move on to the next question. So I will hand this one to Kenyon. And hopefully this one's working. It looks like it is. Okay, so we're going to give this one to Ken, and he's going to go ahead and ask the first question.
Okay, and so this is to Kenyon, and the others will answer. What are the top 3 things you'd like to accomplish if you were elected?
That's a great question, and I think we've heard a couple times already, I think infrastructure and facilities and town infrastructure has to be our #1 priority. It is the foundation of everything else that we want to do in a town. We were hit hard during the flood, and I know that caused a lot of damage, and we all lost something during that time, and I think we've had a lot of projects, we've had a lot of contractors and timelines to manage. But again, I think it really is the foundation. And in fact, I was reading in the flood recovery plan, and I just want to quote this: of if we reduce the ability to provide services, which would reduce the attractiveness to the town, to customers and business, this has a probability of creating a downward spiral that cannot be broken. I firmly believe in that. So I think the first thing we have to do is get our house in order. The next thing we need to do is we need to be business friendly, and I say that not only as a business owner, I say that as an example. Some of the goals that we have are business creation and retention. Other than the 2 structures that Craig built, there has not been a commercial building built in this town since I moved here in 2003. So I think if we read the comp plan, it says we want to promote ourselves as being business friendly. I would like us to actually be business friendly. And I think there's a couple things that we can do there that I'll get to later. And then of course housing. We need diverse housing. We need housing that's affordable. We need housing for the employees of our businesses to live in. We need places for our artists and people who who created this city and this town the way that it was when we all got here and the way we want it to be again. So those are my 3 priorities: public facilities, business friendly, and housing.
Do you want us to go down the line, or, okay. Okay, so I would say that my 3 priorities are the wastewater treatment plant, affordable housing, and supporting our small business community. I believe that with the wastewater treatment plant, I think that we have opportunities. I do want you all to know that in the next few weeks, we're going to have the new centrifuge in, along with our aerators and blowers. And so I do think that we are going to be making progress, and we're going to see that improve. I know I'm mad about what my costs are, and I know that you are too. And so that's very clear. So I think that this needs to be top priority in terms of going to figuring out where our problems are, how we're going to budget for them, and moving forward. Affordable housing. So I grew up basically living in apartment rentals, home rentals, and a mobile home. And so I think affordable housing is something that touches me personally. I know what it means to have a stable place to live, and that promotes well-being. One of the things that I've heard from many of our businesses is that they aren't able to keep their employees here because the difficulty of them having a place to live. And honestly, if anyone wants to live in Lyons and wants to work in Lyons, they should be able to live and work here and it be affordable. Small businesses, I think that we have opportunity for growth here, and I do hope that we can get into some of the ideas in more detail. But I think that we have lodging opportunity because we've got to keep the people that come through our town for our wedding industry, which is becoming extremely competitive. People want to stay here, and then the next morning they can shop here and they can have breakfast here. We have an opportunity for sales tax increases there. And so I think that by supporting our small businesses, we'll be able to accomplish those things.
Well, my answers are much the same. I've got some specific policy initiatives that I would love to explore. So infrastructure, of course, that's the basis for everything. We have to fix that. When it comes to affordable housing, I think that building new affordable housing is just one tool in a toolbox, and we need to use all the tools. So something else we might consider is revising the ADU ordinance so that, for example, if somebody wants to build an ADU that is permanently affordable, they can have more square footage. I think we need to take a look at the existing mobile home park, which I happen to live just a couple houses away from. It's not zoned for a mobile home park. And so the owner can't make necessary upgrades to it without triggering a zoning review. I think, Paul, tell me if I have that wrong, I'm sure.
Kind of, yeah.
So we need to look at ways to ensure that we have the market rate affordability sustained so that we don't lose that. I think that's extremely important. And then in terms of new business, small business, I have a lot of ideas about that hopefully we'll get into later. But Kenyon mentioned the arts, and I think that's a really great thing to think about. And there's a program in Colorado where part of a town can become a Colorado Creative District, an official Colorado Creative District. And in doing that, be able to get grants, different other amenities from that. It's a really great program, and I think we should consider that as well.
Well, I'd like to concentrate on the sewer plant. I know it's not a sexy issue, but that's going to end up being a $6 million investment by the time we upgrade it to allow any Eastern Corridor development, which we've been working on for a long time. There are two kinds of sewage that need to be addressed. One of those is industrial. And industrial means by the standards that have been put into place by the EPA, that you must pre-treat industrial waste before it goes into a plant. That hasn't been done in Lyons. In the one case, that is an industrial waste producer. Now, the flood was a long time ago. We've been working on this for over 7 years. We still do not have a pre-treatment ordinance. That is unacceptable. And I would place the sewer plant on an emergency footing because we need to protect that investment and we need to solve that problem so we can both develop the eastern corridor and be in compliance, because it's been put on hold by the federal government, and there's not a thing we can do until we upgrade the plant.
The previous housing, look at the numbers. We lost 75, roughly, maybe more, housing units, living units in the town of Lyons in the flood. We rebuilt 6. Some may disagree with this, but our 2010 comprehensive plan said we needed more affordable housing in Lyons. We've lost somewhere between 60 and 70 units. We need more affordable housing. Sewer plant's been mentioned. Everybody knows it's a problem. How you fix it is a little bit more, when you get down into the details is when it gets difficult. We do need a pre-treatment ordinance. We finally just passed an ordinance that users in the high strength category have to actually test their effluent before it goes into the sewer plant. That hasn't been done. We haven't even know the sources of this. We need a pre-treatment ordinance. Something else I think that's really important is we need to share more information with the public about the water treatment plant. There are parts of it because we have issues with Honeywell that are confidential, can only be discussed in executive session, which gets frustrating, but there's a lot of public information that needs to be condensed, highlighted, and put on the town's website so the public can better understand this important issue. Thirdly, we need to rebuild the 4th Avenue pedestrian bridge. It literally connects what are now almost 2 halves of town. Everybody in town will benefit from that. All 3 of those things are tied together with one common denominator, and that's money. And until we fix our budget priorities and specifically address how we're going to pay for some of these things we need to do, you're wasting your time and breath. Let's look at our budget and let's reform it so that we can figure out how to pay for the critical needs, including infrastructure that we have in Lyons.
So let me give you a little background. As I mentioned before, we lived in small towns in New Hampshire for many, many years, 40 some odd years to be exact. They have a quaint little tradition there, it's called town meeting, wherein we would gather in a room like this, the entire population of the town, or those who could make it, and we would vote on issues. We would vote on a new air pack for the fire department, or some other issue. With an up or a down vote, it would pass. What I've discovered here, and which has been a little frustrating to me in Lyons, is the representative form of government. We are supposed to carry on the wishes of the citizenry. I got that. The problem is that I would wager that 80% of this town has no idea of what goes on in town hall, what the issues are. I don't even know, like Mark said, I don't even know what the issues are with the wastewater treatment plant. I don't know what the town budget is necessarily. You know, people will say, well, gee, you can go to the Board of Trustees meeting, you can listen to them on streaming video. Yeah, I'm retired, I can do that. But I use the example of my daughter, who lives in Lyons, who's raising a family and 2 of my beautiful grandkids. And when we have discussions about town issues, she shrugs her shoulders because she doesn't know. She would know if we publish an annual town report every year. It doesn't have to be as extensive as this one, which is the town incident that I lived in for 30 years. But it would have all the numbers, it would have reports from each of the boards and commissions, it would give the citizenry information they need, and that's always been my point. An informed citizenry is an engaged citizenry, and that would be my number one priority if I were elected.
Is it possible to turn that mic up?
Any better? That's more too. I can start singing, I guarantee you. Top priorities, infrastructure, those who go to board meetings and listen to me before I talk about it. Not only wastewater treatment plant, water mains, our transmission lines, equalizing pressure throughout town. There are pressure towns and areas of town that have a little less pressure than others. To me, it becomes a concern mainly during summers, when August hot, fire season. You probably want full pressure in your water lines because that's where your water for fire suppression is going to come from. Storm drainage is a big issue. The town we've had several studies. Some areas of town, if we have rainfalls similar to the hailstorm, I believe it was 2015, what was it? A storm cell sat over us. In certain areas of town, if something like that happens, there's going to be a lot of water coming down from some areas, some old areas, that what infrastructure is there isn't going to handle it, and we're going to have some businesses, some homes, they're going to have washout problems. And that's not good for a business community, as those that have businesses during the flood. Biggest fear you have is loss of customers, and that kind of situation is not good. Second issue, I mentioned in my opening, budget, housing. To me, those are somewhat tied together. As the board works with our budget, we massage it, we work it. Something that we just have to raise taxes or fees on utilities go up. That goes against affordable housing, because everything we do raises the cost of living. So we kind of beat ourselves up on that and go back and forth. And then the smart development, business development, Eastern Corridor. And continue to hopefully keep our sales taxes, which are pretty strong, have been consistently going up. And hopefully we can maintain that and keeping that business community strong, and with smart development, we should be able to maintain that.
I think my three most important issues possibly would be governance, again, and the budget, and the comp plan that is in need of revision and is due to be revised this year. I'd like to echo what Greg Lowell just said. I also came here from New Hampshire, and I was very used to a very different sort of governance than what we have here in Colorado. We have a representative democracy here. But I looked out at all you and I said, well, I'm here for the same reasons you are. And I don't really see why, when it comes to major issues facing the town, we shouldn't all have a vote on these issues. And I've watched for the last 10 years as major issues have come up before the board for discussion, and it seems that unless it's required to come to a vote, often, in fact, I think 99% of the time, no vote. I don't think the board needs to be afraid of approaching its public, its constituents, and say, what do you think about this? The votes can be advisory votes. They can be scheduled when ballots are already being held. They don't have to be expensive. And how else do we know what the public really wants? You heard Jocelyn Farrell say some opinions. We've all now been saying opinions about what we think is important for the town to pursue. I'm going to say a couple more things. But first and foremost, we should be representing what our constituents, what the residents, what the business community need and want. And it is, how else do we know? And that's why the comp plan is so important. We have a comp plan, it's 10 years old. We can refer to it for matters of, for example, how housing should proceed, how we should develop housing. We should pay attention to it, we need a new one, and the public needs to be involved, and the public input to that needs to be preserved in the final document. I'll talk about the budget a little bit later. Thanks.
Thank you. So going forward, I just wanted to make it clear that these questions are going to be for a candidate that is in turn, that has the mic. And so it's not necessary to pass it, and it's not necessary for each candidate to answer each question. Only if you have something that you want to contribute, you can raise your hand and the mic will be passed to you. Otherwise, we'll finish that question and move on to the next question and to the next candidate. Sound like a plan?
Good job, Ben. Is this mic working? I get the impression you need to speak from the top and not versus the side.
This way?
Yes.
Okay, the question is, do you favor or oppose taking over the flood bio properties in Apple Valley? The town estimates that to maintain these properties, it would cost about $60,000 per year. How would the town pay for that?
So, first off, this did come up in front of the town at one point in the last few months, and I remember saying specifically that that's $60,000, $50,000 maintenance amount did not sound reasonable to me. I think that we have an opportunity for other alternative ways to handle those properties. I actually don't think that we've had enough of a discussion on this particular piece with the board. So I have some mixed feelings on it, and I have not made a decision on this at this point. I do think that we should, no matter what we decide, you never give away something without having something in its place. And so we should really be conscientious about where and how we plan to deal with this particular property. I don't like the idea of Boulder County owning it. I think that that's so restrictive, and once it's gone for good. I do think that perhaps we have an opportunity through an intergovernmental agreement to maybe work with them and to come to some sort of an agreement as a possibility. But I do hear from the landowners there, they don't want the public being on that property. So are there leasing options that are available between the current people, residents on Apple Valley with lands next to them? Is that a possibility? So I feel like we need to have this discussion a little bit more. My mind is not made up, but I really, really am skeptical of the $50,000 maintenance budget.
Two things. I would defer to the people who live in Apple Valley, first and foremost, because I think that that's very important. Second, I would definitely want to know how much and whether we can maintain the parks and open space that we have now. Because we have so much more to take care of and pay the maintenance and upkeep on, and we've never had to do it. So we don't know how much it's gonna cost. We have projections, but I would like to know, and I would like to know that number before I would ever take on additional costs.
I can give a definite answer to that one. Look at what the town does with its surplus property now. We get nothing for it and we don't take care of it. We've got too much surplus property and we don't need more. Look at the lovely abandoned water treatment plant at the end of Apple Valley, and you'll see how well we take care of our surplus property. Look at the junkyard Tank Hill that we rent out for free. We get nothing for that. We don't need to take on more surplus property and spend tax money on it. We could go to streets, stormwater drainage, 4th Avenue Bridge, you name a lot, infrastructure, a whole lot of other higher priority projects than getting more surplus property. We've got a lot of surplus property. If we get it, it's going to stay vacant, just like it's staying vacant if Boulder County owns it. So I'm opposed to spending tax dollars that need to go for higher priority purposes on more surplus property that we don't have the resources to take care of.
Well, it's true, Mark, it is surplus property, but it's great fishing. So the deal is, I've been involved to some degree with the Apple Valley buyout properties through the Parks and Rec Commission, through the Ecology Board. I went on a tour with Boulder County officials, who took a bunch of us around, and we toured all the properties and got to walk the land. After that initial tour, Boulder County basically said, we're not going to be good stewards of this land. They're only going to be reactionary. They don't consider them an integral part of their open space portfolio. I think what you're going to find is, number one, they're going to be posted because they don't want any problems on them. And number two, they're just not going to manage them. They said that the town of Lyons would be a better steward of these properties. And we did mention, in point of fact, that we have a adoption process like we have for the buyout properties in town here, where if any of the abutters want to caretake the properties, it's a very simple agreement. There's some conditions they have to fulfill, but if they want to take care of it, fine. That gets it off our plate. We don't have to do maintenance on it. As to the maintenance costs, at the last Parks and Rec meeting, we had Dave Cosgrove, our Parks and Public Works Director, who admitted that the $58,000 price that he threw out there was literally boilerplate numbers from a industry standard on open space, and that he expressed misgivings that rather than the 58K, he should have expressed a range. And somewhere in there, the figure of 13K was mentioned. I mean, if you look at the 58K figure, 43K of it is for litter control. Really? I've got open space here in town that I never see a parks person on it picking up litter.
Did you want to continue with everyone or just sporadic so you go with more questions?
It's only if you have a burning.
Go ahead.
Well, I would just say that I sense that there's kind of a middle ground here. These properties are in our backyard. They're beautiful properties. They're relevant to Lyons. The Lyons section just turns back. Whatever the county does is fine. And what I would suggest is that the Board of Lyons trustees be proactive on this and set up a group that includes members from the county and from its advisory boards and from the neighborhood. And I don't see that there's any rush in this. I may be wrong, but there's time to work toward the long-term disposition of these properties.
Okay.
Kenyon. Sorry.
Hi, I agree that there is a middle ground here. And I think right now we have 3 times the national average in terms of open space per 1,000 citizens. Do we need more? No. Should we lose it? Probably not. I think there's ways. I think the Botanic Garden is a great example of some people that if we allow people, listen, we moved to this town because it's creative, amazing people that had a vision for something. Let's get out of their way and create an environment where they can make those things happen, like the Botanical Garden. Could we put an RV on one of these slots as an RV spot, town park, and have an artist in residence? Instead of a campsite host, let's have an artist in residence living in town on one of these spots. I think there's also, and I haven't looked at all of the information, I think there are opportunities for things to happen on those properties, even though they're owned and zoned the way they are. And we should look for creative ways to not even necessarily make money, although I am a capitalist and that's always my first position, but to break even. Could we cover the costs of making it beautiful? Could it not look like the hill up here? Can it not look like some of the other properties that are just left? And I think we need to get creative, and I think partnering is the first thing that we need to do. There's several people in Apple Valley that want that stewardship agreement. Let's go talk to them. Let's not let them have conversations with Boulder County, and we'll have conversations with Boulder County, and we'll have conversations with them. Let's all get into a room around a table and figure out what we need to do.
I don't want to be the only one not commenting on this, and also I'm on the PCDC, and we have had a hearing, a public hearing, where people came and spoke, Apple Valley residents came and spoke, and I am undecided too. I do think it's a lot of money to spend, a lot of money to commit. I'm unclear about whether using it for different purposes like fishing or camping would actually work. I do agree that whatever we do, we need to ask for something for Boulder County. And something that was brought up at the hearing that we had was we need to do a wildlife corridor study. That's a huge wildlife corridor. And so if we start putting up fences there, what's that gonna do to the wildlife? So it's just some additional thoughts on that.
It's your turn to answer the next question, Holly, so.
Before I get to that question, we weren't able to get the Lysol or Clorox wipes, so you guys are sharing the microphone. So,
We need a whole nother board.
Holly,
Don't touch your face.
do you support a ban on all synthetic herbicides on town land? Would you risk losing millions of dollars of town funds in FEMA clawbacks for breaching the grant agreements? And what is a clawback?
So a clawback, from my understanding, I'm really glad I got this question actually. A clawback is when the federal government takes a look at how we've spent the money they've given us to do a particular project and says, you know what, you didn't really do that the way I wanted you to, so we want that money back. And there's a lot of money at stake here. So so that's what a clawback is. Somebody correct me if I get that wrong, please. So when it comes to the synthetic weed control, I would love to see Lyons be 100% organic. If that didn't mean that we were at risk of getting all this money clawed back, because that's a really significant risk. What I think is that if that is a risk, let's do a staged plan to get to 100% organic. And in the meantime, we need more oversight. We need to know exactly what is being sprayed where. Last summer, I was taking my dogs for a walk down in Sandstone Park, and I saw a guy spraying stuff with a completely unlabeled thing, and I asked him what it was, and he said it was synthetic weed control, but he didn't know exactly what it was. I went back later, and there were no flags in the grass. We need to know, the town deserves to know, everybody in the town deserves to know exactly what is being sprayed and where.
Anyone else?
I find myself on both sides of the fence on this. First of all, on the ecology board, we helped Bob and the rest of the weed management group get through this process, which ended up being very beneficial to the town. Basically, the town doesn't do glyphosate anymore. The weed group also did some sampling in the parks. They showed some traces of previous synthetic herbicide that had been sprayed there. Well below the EPA standards. And then with my other hat, I put on the Parks and Rec Commission. And the Parks and Rec Commission finds himself in kind of a difficult spot because they've made a commitment to use no more glyphosate, to use organics whenever possible, but we have to remind ourselves that we are still in that flood recovery stage where we have lots of fallow ground here that has been taken over by weeds. We face the possibility, as somebody brought up here, of clawbacks. I don't know enough about clawbacks except what I've heard from the current board members. But I will tell you, if you think that the federal government is not going to come for clawbacks, then you only need to consider what they did on Bone Park Phase 2. We would have been playing softball on Bone Park Phase 2 this past summer if it hadn't been for a federal bureaucrat who decided that he hadn't had enough information and cut it off and put us through an 18-month delay. So that's an object lesson about exactly what the federal government can do.
Since I've made several comments online, I feel it's appropriate that I also address everybody in the room. I would love for Lyons to be an organic town. I think that that would be such an attraction for people who are sensitive to environmental issues. If it risks as has been claimed, that there could be clawbacks involved if the parks, in a bureaucrat's determination, had too many weeds in them, then I think that we could utilize means by which to alleviate the weeds, such as the weed posse has been doing for the last 7 or 8 years. I can't imagine how the situation would look like if they hadn't done it. They don't use herbicides, so, you know, I haven't used herbicides on my property for 35 years, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be outvoted on the board by a majority vote in regard to using herbicides in the park on a phase out, a 100% phase out, which is what I would like to see. We were successful on Roundup. I think we could be successful on every one of them if we came together.
First thing that should be said about this is that it's not even going to, that this is presently the subject of a citizen's petition that's being circulated, and if it's successful, this will be a matter that's up for the voters of Lyons to decide, not for the Board of Trustees. So in that case, in some sense, our opinions are not that directly relevant. But what I hear often is from very well-meaning people that they would love to see the town move to an organic approach. They would love, but then there are these, what I think really are scare tactics, clawback. When we compared what happened in Bone Park because the town did not get its act in order, FEMA clamped down after a long delay, and the park was, the work in the park was delayed. That has nothing to do with the issue of whether we can move to less hazardous organic pesticides to control weeds in town. That's just, it's scare tactics. You know, it's fine to say you really want to see this happen, but we have to delay it. But I would say we should put our policy where our mouth is. And if the board doesn't do it, I'm pretty confident that the residents of this town really want this, and they will do it. That's just my opinion.
All right, thank you.
May I respond to that?
Oh, yes, you may.
I'm going to say that I take issue with the reason that the Bone Park got delayed was because it was something that the town did. That's actually factually incorrect. The soil sample came back because there was some really good manure in it. And it needed to be evaluated by FEMA. They took a ridiculously long amount of time to do that. But it was really based on a soil sample. It was not because of something that the town was negligent about. So I would like to be really careful with the details. And so that should be, if you want to just talk about scare tactics, that's actually not an accurate word.
Okay, if that takes care of that issue, we'll move on to the next
I
question.
could just clarify what I
Okay,
meant
that's
by
the
that.
fun though.
Right?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Really fun.
Yeah, we'll have fun some other day. All right, we'll give Robert just a half a minute to
So, this is a while in the past. My understanding is that this was a cultural resources issue with the state SHPO's office. They finally became aware that the town or the contractor had not done necessary work prior to issuing their clearance. I could be wrong about that. That's something that town staff knows and we could inquire from them what exactly happened.
All right, thank you. Next up is Angelo.
Okay.
Should there be a single hauler trash service in the town? should there be a pay-as-you-throw requirement for trash service in the town of Lyons?
You can tell Nick is thrilled about it.
I get the questions I just really love. Well, this is also an election issue. And it's the people who will decide this issue. And I will abide by the decision of the people. Again, I've stated it online. You know, I'm just one of those kind of guys that doesn't like to be told what to do. And doesn't appreciate basically a monopolistic arrangement in a capitalistic society. It doesn't affect me personally, because my zoning is commercial, and this does not apply to commercial zoning. But I do appreciate the concept of organic matter being separated. I wish that maybe we could have had a suggestion on using phosphorus-free soaps that wouldn't impact the sewer plant also, because it's the organic matter that goes into garbage disposals that create a situation at the sewer plant that makes it very difficult to treat. But to answer the question, personally, I wouldn't support it.
So, again, it's a ballot issue, so we're not gonna decide the issue. I think when we talk about implementing a plan that's gonna affect everybody in the town, we need to look at how it will most adversely affect people in the town. And by that I mean, with pay-as-you-throw, for some people, it might wind up being an extra charge that doesn't really matter. It might break other people's budgets. And I think no matter what we do, we need to look at it, how it affects everybody. The other issue that I didn't see addressed is bears. And some of you know that I go on and on about bears, because I have bears in my backyard, and I have tooth marks in my bear-proof trash bin. And I do not trust that everybody in town will know how to safely compost. I don't know what Western would charge for a bear-proof bin. I know they charge $9 a month in Boulder. I know I bought my bin from One Way for $70. So those are two reasons that I'm not 100% supportive of pay-as-you-throw.
Anyone else want to say anything about that?
I'll just add one more aspect of it. Oh, by the way, I think it's a noble gesture, this pay-as-you-throw and cutting down household waste stream. I think it's a great idea. We do it ourselves. I recycle, my wife recycles, we compost stuff. But I think the one thing that is missing thus far from the conversation is, I'm not sure I want the town to administer another utility. They've got 3 already. I'm not sure I want them to sign up for that.
It sounds like I'll probably be alongside what most people up here are saying is freedom of choice for people and your garbage, how you take care of your home. That's kind of where I'm at. That's why I'm not totally for it. Can we compost more? Can we do more of our tree and brush and keep it in town so that townspeople can use it for their gardens, for their soils? Depending where you live in town, some people have good soil because it's been amended for years. Where I am, it's up in the old quarry and it's pretty crappy. So I do keep everything I cut down, cut, mulched, and use it, amend my soil the best I can, and bring in horse manure and other stuff to keep it amended the best I can. If it passes, if people pass it, as mentioned, it's passed, the board makes sure it goes through and the staff can handle it and do what we can to help staff implement the process. If you're gonna push something on the residents though, we're gonna let's go full bore and add it to the commercial, and that way the whole town is doing it like everyone says they want to do, then let's do it that way.
Yeah, this brings me back to governance again, because I've said, well, it'd be nice if the upcoming board is a little more proactive about, on the big issues, just automatically thinking it should plan on eventually having a ballot on the matter as the planning goes forward. The SFC could have continued its work with that, knowing that that was in its future for this initiative. But it's not just that, it's also look at the diversity of opinions here on this board, and people speaking their mind, coming at it from different points of view, and our combined insights on this help move things forward. It's not bad when a board has a kind of vigorous discussion. It's not bad if there's time in the meeting for the members of the public to come up with more than 4 minutes and provide their insights and their concerns about an issue. So to me, it's partly a matter of governance again, that this type of issue is best left to the town to grapple with, even though it's messy, and then come to a collective decision on.
All right, thank you. Oh, one more.
So I was an advocate and am an advocate for the Pay As You Grow program. Because I do see where there are the advantages, but I really advocated for it to come up to vote for the citizens. And I thought that that was really important in this particular situation. But one thing that I think is important to talk about is with that, you will also see on the ballot a citizen initiative about any time the town might want to go into a contract for waste services. Basically, that would have to go to a vote. And I just really want to give you an example of what worries me about this. And specifically, it says, if the town wants to go into a contract with waste services. So last year, we budgeted $6,000 to have a spring cleanup. We used to do that pre-flood, but the chipper went down with the river. So we went into a contract for Bear Forestry, thank you. And they went around, and it was extremely successful, where people put their cleanup out, and they came through and took care of it. So if the citizen initiative passes and you vote yes for it, that will have to go to vote every year, and that's a waste. And so I think that's a consequence that's unintended, but I think that it's a real concern. And so, but I want to take that concern also, and there's a point when we can't vote on all of the issues, and then I think that you are electing a board and a mayor and trustees that share a value that is important to you, and then to ultimately make the decision based on the information that they have, the research that they've put into it, the discussions that they have had with the community. So I think it's really important that we are held accountable for making decisions, and we make those decisions.
Next question.
Next question. Is the Urban Renewal Authority in the best interest? Okay, why or why not? And if not, then what do you propose?
I didn't hear.
Is the Urban Renewal Authority in the best interest of the town? Why or why not? If not, then what do you propose?
Well, we're 16 and a half pages on this, so that's it. To be clear, I don't think the Urban Renewal Authority should be abolished. I do think it needs to be totally restudied and reconfigured in some ways. I think, in particular, what is being proposed to do on the Eastern Corridor is highly unlikely to work due to a lot of complicated changes in the urban renewal laws. I think the town could easily, is headed to being put in a position to have to either convert sales tax to BRA make loans to the URA.